Hi, UX friends. My name is Juan Ramirez. I'm a product designer for the testing and runner groups. And today, for my UX showcase, I'll be talking about a feature that we have been working on for testing called Test Screenshots via xUnit reports. I also want to apologize because I wasn't able to make it to this meeting. So this is why I'm pre-recording my presentation so you guys can watch it at your own time. Right, so let's jump into it. So let's talk a little bit about the testing group for context. So as you know, in CI/CD, testing is a big part of creating like continuous integration, right? So even at the very core of the definition of continuous integration and continuous delivery, we have testing as part of that, like big part of that. So usually it starts with, like with the source, then build, then test, then deploy, right? So test is definitely a major part of how software is deployed and managed. So it's a crucial part of our CI experience. Although this is very important, we're still at very minimal levels. We haven't reached yet like the lovability of other areas. So we have a lot of work ahead of us. In this particular feature that I'm going to be talking about, there's many things that apply to this type of work that we're doing. I will say that from all the things that we have here on our strategy, I think it applies to all of them in one way or another. But definitely, it applies very concretely to the last three. It applies very importantly to system testing, which is an area for 2020. It definitely has a lot of impact in usability testing, and it also has an impact on accessibility testing. But also beyond that, even for unit testing or load testing, screenshots, which is what I'm going to be talking about, have certain implications and can help with the creation of those tests and with enabling things within the testing practices. So it's a very crucial part of what we're doing here. All right, so let's start with the initiative goal. So like basically we have the business goal and we have the user goal. Like from the business perspective, what we want to do is basically help our customers to troubleshoot and fix test issues that are tied to visual regressions or are tied to rendering problems or things that are very visual that happen within a browser. And we want to help them to get those screenshots that are helping them to fix these issues in a very low friction way. So we believe that the right way to do this is by taking them to that area where the screenshot is generated and putting that in front of them and automating that process of retrieving those screenshots and finding what's wrong by just looking at those screenshots. And although that's not yet what we're building, we hope that eventually it's gonna be as capable as figuring out what's going on the screenshots that we're taking as part of the tests. And then from a user goal perspective, it's very clear what we want to do with this specific feature. What we want to do is we want to help our customers troubleshoot pipelines faster. And especially we want to help them with pipelines that have visual testing and have web rendering jobs because those are the jobs that are generating screenshots. And although we support that currently, it's not that easy to triage and find the resulting screenshots. It's actually very painful. And that's why our MVC starts by putting those generated screenshots higher in the GUI and like remove the friction that currently exists when trying to retrieve them. So talking a bit about the working hypothesis. So we believe that the way to do this is to basically rethink the way that the screenshot retrieval process happen right now. So the way that it works is that basically a customer will go and set up a testing job, and that testing job has a script that is gonna go and look at a website, and then it's gonna take screenshots at certain points or certain events, most likely failures. And once that is happening within the job, then what's gonna happen is that the screenshot is gonna be stored as an artifact of the job. So the way that our customers do that currently is that they go to the job, they navigate to the job, and then they download or browse the artifact directly from that view. And that's a long journey with a lot of friction. Usually it's a zip file and you gotta unzip things and you gotta do like a lot of things. And if it's browsable, then you gotta like drill through folders. You don't know exactly what you're looking at. So there's definitely a lot of issues with that process. So the working hypothesis is like, that's not the way that it should be. We should make it super smooth and it should be very visual as screenshots are. So the working hypothesis is quite simple. Is we want to present this in a RESTful way in an area of the CI, likely as a dedicated CI view. We believe the people who are running WebDriver tests with frameworks like Selenium need these to actually be productive when using this type of tools. And there's a very important part of this, which is what's the common ground. And the common ground is that anyone who is doing this type of work or this type of testing, they are likely using an xUnit framework for this. So we gotta build on top of that. And the idea here is that like any job that is generating xUnit reports or xUnit type reports should be able to consume or to build on top of this system. And then basically we should be able to consume from those reports and show these images in a smooth way. And then finally, I think the most important thing here to understand is the process of downloading the artifacts and the process of retrieving those screenshots shouldn't be hard, but it's probably even more than that. It should be a proactive thing that happens for the customer in such a way that they are always seeing this in the context, in the right context. So that's why we believe this should have its own dedicated view. It shouldn't be just a simple link to a screenshot. It should have its own living area where they can interact and figure out what's going on with the tests that are failing or the tests that are producing screenshots. All right, so the way that we approach this is basically we kind of like didn't do the right process or like the common process in GitLab. This is already kind of like a validated problem. So our problem validation wasn't the most like conventional problem validation. We already have existing community feedback and designs. We had customers who actually created mocks and put those mocks in an issue, which is the originating issue for this problem. And we had that evidence, but we also have a lot of strong internal use cases for this in our GitLab projects. So we have from the beginning, we had a very validated problem that required a solution. So basically the way that we did this was gathering all that feedback, revalidating an actual problem with stakeholders, and then basically based on those mocks, we said like, let's just use those mocks and jump to solution validation. And there's a lot of other related issues about this particular problem. I put some examples there. And there's also a lot of external data validation coming from many places. You can just go on like Google this and you'll see that like actually this matters to customers and developers in general. So the solution validation research was quite simple. There were like a couple of mocks provided by the community, basically doing a little bit of what they wanted already. So we said, okay, like we already have something that we can just go and show someone. So we took those mocks provided by the community, and then we did some qualitative research. Because we have such a strong internal stakeholder case for this, we basically had interviews with internal customers. So we showed them these. We went through like very extensive discussion guide to explore the kind of like breadth and depth of the problem. And then we got a lot of information. We got a lot of positive feedback. This is the right direction for this feature. But we basically got major feedback in 4 areas. One was the importance of like summarizing things, showing that something happened and what's the context in general of the things that happen, right? The second thing is like exploring possibility of having both a raw log and a screenshot combined, because sometimes people don't want to go between all of those things back and forth. And then specific layout improvements, and then information presentation improvements as well. All right, so the design phase. The design phase was very interesting because basically the way that we did it was with a big design, right? We created this new CI view with a feature-rich view with filters, with session filters, with status filters, with ability of hiding paths and expanding screenshots and doing many things. But yeah, eventually we figured that this was a good conversation starter. So we basically put this and we tried to get feedback from the initial participants and other stakeholders. We got a lot of positive feedback, but then we realized that we actually had to groom down that to an MVC. So while the designs that we created initially solved a problem or solved the problem very extensively, we needed to basically groom down things to a smaller version of it. So what we did was we went through a user journey mapping exercise with the team, and then we redefined the MVC, and then we came up with the most essential aspects of this feature. So what we ended up doing was rethinking a little bit the things, and then the big major thing that happened here is that we decided that this feature makes more sense when it's living at the pipeline level and not at the job level. And this makes sense because you might have several suites generating screenshots, and you really want to have those screenshots aggregated in an easy way that it's consumable and very easy to parse and digest, right? There's some sacrifices that we're making. We don't have the initial summarization aspect of the feature, and we're sacrificing in other areas, but we expect to get back to those. We basically are doing here an exercise in which we are bringing to the customer the most essential features as an MVC, and this is the result. So some design highlights are, this is going to be a one-paginated table that lives at the pipeline level with all the tests that took screenshots in that pipeline, right? You're going to be able to see the originating suite. You're going to be able to see all the WebDriver details, how it took the screenshot and whatnot. And then you're going to have ad hoc access to the specific log from there. It's just basically going to open a modal, and then you're going to see the log for anyone who wants to see the trace. And another important part of the feature is that we're still going to give people the ability to download the artifact, but the difference is that you just do it from here without drilling into the actual job. We also found some out of scope issues, like the usability of the tabs in the pipeline view is reaching a ceiling, so we might need to figure out that down the road. We have an existing test tabs that outline all the executed tests, so we believe that kind of overlaps a little bit, so eventually we'll need to merge both features. But we think this is a good start on having them separated. It's a win right now for us and for the customers. And then we also think that the MR widget should basically, we will eventually need an MR widget for this that mirrors what we're trying to do with this feature at the pipeline level, because that's where in context is going to matter a lot. Implementation workflow details right now, the backend is currently in implementation. We have some small design iterations coming, especially some layout of the table. Maybe it's going to change, but we expect to fix this during 12.8, and then work it's going to be happening in front end is going to be happening in 12.9, and then we basically expect to ship this in 12.9. And then there's many other initiatives that are deriving from this specific initiative. One of those is basically improving the merge request screenshot job to be done, as I mentioned before. And right, that's pretty much it. I was kind of trying to run through it, but yeah, I just want to thank everyone who has been involved in this project and who has give feedback for this. I really appreciate it. I also want to give thanks to Lori, who provided very valuable feedback for the discussion guide in our research. And yeah, I hope you enjoy learning a little bit about testing in GitLab.